Morning, everyone. Is it? No, it's midday. It's midday. Don't you love the plants? I love green. It's my favourite colour. What's your favourite colour? I have loved green for about 30 years now. It's really grounding, really keeps me peaceful. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the Venus-Jupiter conjunction yesterday, which will still be active despite the fact we've had the exact conjunction, which is yesterday. Now the energy starts to move off, but it is still functioning. I think it will be interesting when the moon moves into Taurus. I think that's going to be tomorrow. I think it's currently still in Aries. When the moon, Aries is the sign of Mars, right? So it's like making reference to Mars in Taurus right now. When the moon moves into Taurus, it's going to really, that's a sign ruled by Venus, which is really going to activate this, albeit separating, conjunction between these benefic planets, right? These planets that tend to bring the positive. But this conjunction, I mean, there were some good positives that happened yesterday, but there were also a lot of, like those things I was sharing in my reel earlier in the week. The thing about Jupiter and Cancer over the last 12 months has been that we are being given the opportunity to really show up for how we care and nurture and keep things safe. And a lot of the experiences that I've been hearing about with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction yesterday are things to do with the sign of Cancer. So kitchens, homes, families, children, parenting, motherhood, nutrition, all of those things being blown out of proportion somehow because Jupiter doesn't really have a filter. It's like, I'm just going to make bigger whatever your experience is. And when it's making bigger the experience of Venus, it's like, well, this is all stuff that I like that should be kind of safe feeling, like home, family. I mean, we don't all love family, do we? But, you know, like traditionally the idea is that like Venus is cohesion, it's social elements in our life, and it should be things that we like. But those things were kind of called into some sort of, like a universal, like a courtroom or something like that. Jupiter does have this link with universal law. And it makes me think of all just being in a big room and being like, okay, how are you really coping with this thing in your life that you are trying to protect and keep safe? So like your physical body, that is a Cancerian thing, because it's a moon rule thing. The moon is the body. And your home life and your families and your connections. And in terms of like nutrition, I was so hangry yesterday. Hangry has been such a one for Jupiter and Cancer over the last year. I'm going to look forward to that one. Pissing off, leaving the building, trying to make sure, I'm trying to learn from it that like it's always good to carry a snack, right? Always make sure that there's some sort of snack around. But yeah, I've heard some really upsetting stories of loss, stories of home not being a safe place, and of motherhood and parenting not being a safe place, childhood not being a safe place. And it's from those experiences coming into our viewpoint in that waiting room, that universal waiting room, that it's like, how can we make this a safe space? Where did I go wrong? Where did that person go wrong? Where did my house or my food or my nutrition or my relational qualities, Venus relational, where did I go wrong in that? And how can I start to heal that? It definitely had reflections of Mars being in Cancer. That Mars retrograde we had in Cancer a couple of years ago, it's like November of 2024. Wow, that was a hard time. That was a hard time. And there was some sort of talk of the Venus-Jupiter conjunction being like a kind of salve for that experience. And I think there was a kind of cognitive ability to see, maybe through some repetition of those Mars in Cancer type vibes, you know, any kind of anger issues that you may be experiencing, any desire to separate and run away, because, you know, Mars is all about severing. And we're not talking about Mars, we're talking about Venus and Jupiter. But it just took me back to that reflection when all of that stuff felt very out of control. And then yesterday, it's like reflections of that, but not that. So like reflections of those experiences, but with more help and support in how to, you know, sometimes all of these things will always come around in our lives. There will always be trickier times with our relationships. There will always be trickier times when home doesn't feel quite like the safe space that you want it to feel. When, you're not necessarily focusing on nutrition, but you're thinking, I just want to get this feeling of like emptiness out of my stomach by eating everything, you know, like feeling really hangry and like having an insatiable appetite, very Jupiter Venus. So this quality of the two benefics comes together, doesn't negate bad things from happening or undesirable things from happening, but it does, I feel like it gives us the toolkit to move forwards and help support how we react and respond to those difficult things happening. And I think that's really good. I think for the first time ever, which is just astounding to me, but you know, it takes some experiences, like we're not ready until we're ready, right? To kind of push us to make changes. And you know, I'm very open on here that I have always really struggled with being a mum and feelings of like, I'm not good enough. And I'm really honest about it on like a one-to-one basis. Like if we've had a one-to-one chat on DMs, then you will know that like this is something that I'm really open about. But I really panic about sharing really openly about that on kind of like stories or reels or just a bit more kind of out there on show, because it's literally like, I'm just going to take my heart out and like put it here on my forehead for everyone just to like have their feelings about it, which like naturally I'm quite like self-protective as a Cancer rising. I just want to hide in my crab shell. But I'm also really sick of people having to hide their true selves and the fear of like, of the judgment or whatever it is, the fear that sits there. I'm still working through what that is. And I'm so grateful when people share openly about this stuff. I'm so grateful when people DM me about this stuff. And I just, I want to share more openly about things happening in life that are, that are hard and challenging, because being authentic is just, yeah, it's just really an important part of who I am. So like when you see me turn up here and I'm all bouncy and excitable, that is genuinely how I am on that day. And when I show up here and I'm just being honest and truthful, that's how I am on that day. When I'm not showing up on here, it's actually been really frustrating, because there are periods of time when I'm just sort of hiding and like self-protecting. But annoyingly, this isn't actually one of those times. What's actually happening at the moment is that one of my children is being very much like a newborn child again. So, and I'm also trying to prioritize my sleep so that I can help and support him and my other child in the best possible way that I can without flipping out, which does happen. So I used to get to the time when they would fall asleep, maybe like 8 o'clock in the evening, maybe 8:30. That's when I'm starting to get really tense and then not asleep by 8:30. And then I would go on my phone and I would start catching up with people. But what I would be realizing is that I'm like on a screen DMing people, and it's great and it's exciting and I really love that connection and it really fills up that part of my soul. But it really does absolutely nothing for my sleep. And I'm finding that I'm getting much more migraine type symptoms when I spend too long on a screen. So it's frustrating, but it's also like, right, I need to just prioritize everybody's wellness here. And so I guess it's more about sharing quality than quantity, as much as I would like to just share as often as I used to. I'm not sure that I'm in a season of life where that's going to be possible at the moment. And the whole time that the kids are awake and they're not at school or whatever, they're just needing me like constantly, which like I honestly didn't think that we would go back to a phase like this. I thought there would always be like pockets in the day, but there's actually not currently, and that's really overwhelming. And that's why I need to prioritize the sleep, because I need to be able to function. I'm also trying really hard, like, so I started listening to these podcasts about parenting, and like I kept seeing all this stuff of like, when your child does an undesirable behavior, like don't react, don't get angry. Well, okay, so I didn't understand why, so I needed to understand why. So I heard this podcast and it was like, why? Because it's like, you know, this dramatic big expression, whereas like other expressions when they do something well aren't necessarily the same. And I think there's a lot here about our own experiences of being parented as children. And anyways, my like go-to is just to react, but I was like, right, no. So I did maybe like, since picking up children yesterday from school and then dropping them off this morning, every time I wanted to react, I did manage to take, I wouldn't say a full breath because I am learning, half a breath to remind myself that reacting in a big dramatic way is going to feed that behavior more. And I really thought that we were out of this because, you know, my youngest is 5 now. But I don't know if this is part of neurodiversity or if this is just part of being 5 or if it's just part of being a parent trying to parent when like life is hard and there's no reference point to like, okay, so what is it that I'm supposed to do? And also like trying to work and make sure that everyone's eating some vegetables and fruit every day and do the washing, and it is just, yeah, it's really exhausting. But I don't ever want you to think that I don't want to talk to you, because that really bothers me, because I do genuinely think of everybody that I've connected with on here as like a good friend. Maybe that's an issue that I have around boundaries, but I really just value having really authentic conversations with people. And it gets me like right here, you know, I was talking about my heart being right here. It gets me right there, and then it starts going wobbly wobbly, and then I'm like, no, put it back inside, but like, no, I don't want to put it back inside. I just want you to know what's going on, so that perhaps there's an element of understanding from everybody that I would like to be able to provide consistent astrology content for, but that I can't at the moment. And I remember thinking, when my youngest starts school, it'll be fine. And like school has just been such a big trigger for him. And I feel like, yeah, I'm going to hit the ground running. And then I was really on top of doing my new moon and my full moon reports on YouTube, sharing horoscopes each month on here, on other platforms. And then we got to the full moon in Sagittarius, which is my 6th house of like daily routines and like service to others. And I couldn't do it. I literally had no time to do it. It was like breastfeeding, my memory of breastfeeding through a sleep regression. That's the way I can describe it. And so I will be putting out a new moon in Gemini forecast, which will be on my YouTube. And I would so value if you go and watch it. I will share it on here as soon as it's ready. YouTube just doesn't seem to be the place it used to be. So like those videos don't necessarily reach people. So I will share snippets of them, of the full video on here. But if you can go and follow me on YouTube, that would be probably the best place to get some consistent astrology advice, because I don't necessarily do short form content very well at the moment, because it all takes a lot of editing and brain work. Whereas if I can just talk to you, like we're having a conversation, like we're having a cup of tea, this is coffee, your drink of choice, wine, Prosecco, then I can share the messages more authentically.